Welcome to session 6. Now,
And
what are we
healthy
cooking?
soups.
It's healthy soups.
Nothing better than a bowl of warm soup in these wintry months. So
Absolutely.
I'm honestly making soup a couple of times a week because sometimes I just am happy to have the soup just for my evening meal because it's filling enough.
Yes.
So we're going to start with a really yummy vegetable soup.
Yum. And we've got lots of veggies going on, lots of colours I can see.
Yep, so we're using carrots, and celery is always wonderful in a soup because it really does give a great flavour.
Fantastic. And throughout this one, I'm going to be talking a bit more too. We've already done a couple times throughout our sessions so far, but more to our pantry staples, how to use them, how to use leftovers, and of course that budgeting topic as well, because we know how expensive is food, right? It can be quite a burden on our budget for the week.
Absolutely, but simply things as simple as a can of beans, I mean, they literally are like less than $1.50 for a can of those. Sometimes you can get them even less than that.
Yeah.
And there's so much nutrition in that little can. So those and lentils and
Chickpeas?
Chickpeas.
We cooked with the chickpeas, haven't we?
I just had a mental blank as to what a chickpea was, but now
in
thank you, Bonnie.
Yeah, in our wonderful curry, we've got our chickpeas. But yeah, you're right, absolutely. So where are we starting, Joe?
Well, we'll start with the harder veggies first.
Yep.
Always good to start with your
Onion.
and get the fragrance of that going in the pot.
Delightful.
Yeah, so
All right, so we're going to prep all our veggies before we're getting to the pot, aren't we, Joe?
I think that sounds like a really good way to do it.
Cool. Excellent. So I can see here we've got our carrots, our celery, beans, some broccoli, and we've also got parsnip here and some pumpkin. So that's a wonderful colours and all those beautiful things we've been looking at throughout. And whilst you're doing that, I guess I'm going to talk to a bit of our ingredients as well in terms of our budgeting, in terms of staples, things like that. So a couple things about our ingredients. You might be able to notice that a lot of our shopping has come from Coles throughout. But Coles isn't obviously the only shopping that you could do. You could go to Woolies, you can go to the IGAs, you can find the fresh Asian grocers and things like that. Find the shop closest to you and really get familiar with the shop, because that's going to really help you to be able to be creative with your cooking, but be aware of what is in the shop as well. So it makes it really easy to do the shopping. The reason that I have got the Coles brand or the home brand is because it is one of the cheaper ones on the shelf. But sometimes they are hidden. Sometimes they're at the bottom of the shelf because they've got the more brandier sort of labels in front of you. But they're definitely one of the cheaper options. So something to definitely keep an eye out for. We've got a Coles brand here. We've also got our herbs at the front there, or our spices rather, at the front there to Coles, and these ones here. I have used a bit of a different yogurt here, haven't we, Joe, for another part of our soup. But again, it's finding one what works for you within your budget as well. So there is cheaper yogurts than this one. This one certainly is a little bit of a fancy one with the additional bone and muscle health sort of advertisement on it as well. In terms of our staples though, if we look at this, and Joe so rightfully said, canned goods, how good are they? They're something that can stay in the cupboard, they keep well, they're cheap, they're so nutritious, all of those sorts of things. They can sit there for ages.
Sweet corn.
Yeah, sweet corn, beans. You've got your other canned veggies as well. A lot of them, if you're looking for salt reduced, then certainly, or if you're draining off the liquid, or rinsing them, that does get rid of the salt as well. So that's always a good little trick. And like things like our minced garlic as well. Sometimes, garlic sometimes can be a bit of a hassle if you're not going to use the whole thing and you haven't got the little, what are they called?
Garlic
crusher. So things like this is a great way of getting flavour. We're always about this flavour thing, getting the flavour back into our food and making it interesting. I don't know about everyone else, but my herbs and spices, the dried ones are wonderful, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as you say, you have the community garden for your village with the beautiful fresh herbs, so absolutely it's going to make a difference to the meal. But if not, these are perfectly fine. Same with our bay leaves here. You can see that those ones are actually dried as well, which is wonderful. All right, what have we got next?
So now we'll do the carrots, I think.
Carrots.
And cut things reasonably small so as they don't take too long to cook.
Fabulous.
Okay. And we'll Once again, we're leaving the skin on. Remember, all the nutrition is in the skin.
Absolutely.
I'll just
Absolutely.
do it that way.
What do you reckon? Some fancy different cutting today? Oh, it looks really good, and all the colours coming together. Okay. So pantry items on this side, and we've got some of our fridge items, but if you didn't have, say, I mean, we might be using the contents of our fridge, whatever's left over, any
Absolutely.
vegetables, any things that are in the fridge, even leftover meats, I think you're telling me that you put into your soups.
Absolutely. I've got a bit left off the Sunday roast or the a meaty thing that I've made during the week that I can just cut into small pieces and put in to give it a bit more protein.
Yep.
Yeah, and to use it up, which is always important.
I mean, it helps the budget, right? If we can use up what we're buying and we're not just tossing it out and wasting it, then certainly our food's going to go a lot further. So making use of those leftovers or making bigger meals to use for that time, but also to freeze. That freezer is a great tool, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. We found out throughout that we can freeze all sorts of things, like our herbs, I think we mentioned. Other people have talked about sauces, homemade sauces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and when I was living with my nana and granddad, when I was a kid, not even a teenager yet, all we had was a safe. And it was made out of that fly wire on the sides, and we used to hang wet towels around it so the breeze would go through.
Keep it cool.
And that's how they kept things like meat and cheese and butter
That's wonderful.
in there. And, you know, I mean, my nana, I don't think right up until she departed the planet, she never had a fridge.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. And it was the same, that was in New Zealand, but it was the same here in Australia.
Yeah.
You know, it's how those
We've
people...
come a long way, haven't we?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we've got all mod cons now.
But it's a great point because I guess understanding how to store food and keep it fresh is not only going to increase the enjoyment of it, but it's going to make it last longer for you. So storing it correctly, making sure that things like the tins haven't got cracks and dents in them, because that it does increase the ability for them to spoil and go a bit yucky. When you're buying things, making sure they are quite fresh or they are within dates and things like that. And I mean, they don't have a date on them anyway, but other things that do, you can still use it. And in fact, I think our yogurt, for a lot of yogurts, they can be either way. A lot of cheeses, things like that. It's always something to keep an eye on. So best before can still be used after. Used by has to be used by that time.
Yeah.
Okay? Absolutely. Oh, getting a whiff of all that beautiful vegetables getting chopped up there. Excellent. Look at those colours. The greens and the oranges. Looking wonderful. What have we got next there,
We'll
Jo?
go for...
That one? We might need an extra bowl with our veggies all chopped up, hey? What do you reckon? I'll grab one just in case.
Okay. Thanks, Bonnie. Parsnips. Another thing, parsnips. Have you ever thought of preparing your parsnips and with potatoes? And you can make parsnip mash.
Ah,
Oh, it is so
bit of variety in
yummy.
it. That sounds delightful.
And if you add a little bit of horseradish cream to it, just if you want to be a little bit fancy, maybe you're
decadent,
having
yep.
someone over for lunch or,
Yep.
yeah, it's just beautiful. Just, you know, if you're into Googling, you can Google that and it's parsnip mash.
Yeah.
Absolutely yummy.
Also-
My nana used to do it with pumpkin too. We used to call it yellow taters.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I love mixing in different things
Yeah.
into the normal. So the normal, I like to say it's boring mashed potato, but certainly for everyone it's different. But mixing in interesting vegetables and getting those extra bit of veg is always a really good thing, right? Yeah, and you're right with Googling, right? How good is the internet these days where you can really get endless amount of recipes. But I did find, and you'll see in your resource when you download them, that there is sites that actually, if you put your contents of your fridge into these sites, they can give you recipes.
Yeah.
How wonderful is that?
Yeah.
When you're feeling like you haven't got the ideas or the creativity, which, I mean, I certainly know I get to the end of my day and go,
What am I going to make?
what am I going to cook today? So how good are these things to help us use up our leftovers, use up what's in the fridge, get creative, maybe find some new favourite foods or new favourite meals?
Absolutely.
I feel like soups are like that though, aren't they?
Yeah, soup you can just clean out the fridge into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that, I mean, I tend to do sometimes when I'm getting a little bit bored of my soups and I haven't got heaps of ingredients going on, but I've got some, is buying a soup and then using the actual can of soup and adding some extra
Yeah, like
stuff
a
to
tin
it.
of creamy tomato soup. You can add it to, and also just a chicken soup or a chicken noodle soup. You could add that to your veggies as well.
Absolutely, and just boosting the vegetable and the protein content. So adding some leftover chicken that you have in the fridge, or adding some chunky vegetables or frozen vegetables if you haven't got many veggies in your
Or a tin
cupboard.
of minestrone.
What other things do you do to save money on your budget there?
Saving money. I always use leftovers. I think, you know, I'm amazed the number of people that throw really good food out, you know. If you're not going to use it today or tomorrow, pop it in the freezer.
Yeah,
you know.
a lot of things do freeze pretty well,
Yeah.
depending on what you're doing with them. And I guess as long as they're safe and they're still like relatively tasty, right? We still want them to be tasty. Then freezing,
They might not look quite as beautiful.
sharing with a neighbour. I think that's sometimes a wonderful idea with these bigger meals. Sharing with a neighbour. What a nice, warm-hearted way of sharing a meal, right?
Wonderful.
And what a way of, again, something that you can buy some of these things in bulk, yes. As we showed in one of the other sessions, is you can shortcut and buy the microwave already ready cooked or ready cut vegetables and things like that to help with the preparation side or making it a bit quicker. But you can also do the bulk, because buying bulk, obviously, you are cutting out some of those a little bit of price on those things.
You can share in those shopping ventures with your neighbours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful idea.
If you want to get, say, a lot of tarragon or what's the yellow one? Turmeric. I knew it started with T. You know, you could share with your neighbours.
Yeah.
You know, maybe take a joint visit to Gaganis Brothers.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Where they sell it really in bulk.
Yeah.
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 So
we've almost got all our veggies chopped up there, Joe. One thing I didn't mention is around seasonal, shopping seasonally, finding the things that are in shops and on sale or tend to be the ones that are seasonal, but we also have a great list in those resources as well to help you choose those things that are seasonal. When I go shopping though, I never go without a list. Always have a list in mind. What about you, Joe?
I'm dreadful. I sometimes forget. But it's a good idea if you do, because that way you don't get home and don't have something. But I often spend more than I should in the supermarket.
And that's exactly the point, right?
So do a one trip.
To helping with the budget side of things, as well as making sure you've got what you need for the week, making sure that you do have a list.
Absolutely.
So you stick to your list and don't go shopping hungry, because you're going to buy much more, right? Because you're hungry.
True.
All of those bits and pieces, but there's lots of great information in those resources we have attached. So browse through, but let's get into the cooking side of things.
Cooking.
All right, so we're gonna make some flatbread. So I love this one because sometimes you do run out of bread, right? And I think these two are great staples, like yogurt. A lot of people eat yogurt for breakfast. They have it on their curries, as we've also done throughout our sessions. And flour, most people have flour in their cupboard. So two pretty big staples, I would have thought, yeah? We're gonna make some flatbread out of it. Pretty simple, not a whole lot of ingredients, obviously, but it does take a little bit of muscle power. So If you don't want to make bread, just buy it. If this is just a little additional, a bit like the gravy, a bit like those little...
Being a bit fancy.
Bit extras, all right? So all you need for this recipe is our self-raising flour here. So we're going to do 1.5 cups of that roughly. And of course we've got our yogurt here as well. So with our yogurt, thank you Joe, with our yogurt it's really up to you which one you want. We have gone for one of the Farmers Union, and it has got the additional of a bit extra protein, a bit extra calcium. Of course we've talked throughout how important that is for your bones, for the muscles, but it really is up to you which yogurt you're going for. All right, so for this one we just need 1 cup. I'm going to get my hands nice and dirty in a moment.
It looks so easy, doesn't it? It looks wonderful when it's all done. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
So a nice cup of yogurt. Thank you. All right. So basically all from here is just mixing. So we're going to mix this one together, getting it looking a little bit like a dough, hopefully. Once it looks a bit like a dough, we'll get it out and start giving a bit of a knead, just like any other dough that we'd be making. So I can probably have a look at that one. Looking like it's getting together a little bit. I'm going to get my hands in there in the moment. Get this one. So you can see it all starting to stick together nicely, which is excellent. And it takes the knead out of all those other steps, right?
You could even add herbs to that if you wanted to, couldn't you?
Absolutely.
Or even a bit of Parmesan cheese.
Herbs, Parmesan cheese. Yeah. I mean, I always like cooking it plain and then adding a bit of herb butter or a bit of garlic butter or something like that and making it a little bit more...
Chia seeds even?
Yeah, absolutely. And adding a bit more like whole meal, some LSA, like the linseed, almonds, those sorts of things are always really good ways of getting some extra fibre in as well. All right. I might start getting my hands dirty. Okay.
Baker Bonnie.
Oh dear. All right, so I reckon we've almost got him nicely kneaded together here.
Beautiful.
It's looking pretty good, right, Joe?
Yeah, certainly is.
So it's all together, no real lumps and things like that. Now, to know when it's ready, it really is about how sticky it is to your hand. But, I mean, you can't really get it wrong, right? So we've got our dough. Now we're just going to basically pull off a few pieces, roll it into a nice ball. Again, if it's starting to stick to the hands, it's always good to have a bit of flour ready to go, right? What else have you been making, Joe, in terms?
Funnily, I just I saw it on a reel on Facebook actually on making focaccia, and they kept saying how easy it was, and I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. Yeah. And I just have made it so often now, and it's so easy. Yeah. You actually don't have to knead it, but you do have to use yeast. But basically, you just similar sort of dough, but with yeast with a little bit of sugar to help the rising. Put it into a nice neat ball in a bowl, and put it in the fridge overnight covered, and it rises. My last one was like, whoa, it was growing in the fridge, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I took it to a friend's place. She was making bouillabaisse for us for dinner. Yeah. And it was absolutely perfect. It was wonderful. So easy to make.
Yum.
Yeah.
Yum.
I love doing the little dimples. Looks like tummy buttons. Yeah.
So that's our flatbread, really.
Wonderful.
That's what we're going to come to. So really from here, all we need to do is put it in the pan with a little bit of oil, cook it up, and there you go. You can put, like I said, we've got endless options. Put herbs in it. You can put some herb butter on it, but there's your bread to go with your soup, right?
Actually, I think you could stack them in the freezer with a little bit of baking paper between and use them. You could.
Probably.
Easily. That freeze well.
What I love about this as well is we're adding a bit more calcium, a bit more protein to our dish, right? So we're getting another food group into this meal, which is excellent.
Wonderful.
All right.
the soup.
It's looking wonderful there,
does
Jo.
look good, doesn't it?
So, shall we put him in?
Absolutely.
Do I get the pleasures?
Yes. How good does that look, Bonnie?
It looks wonderful. I'm very excited to eat this one. But again, if there is somebody who has any swallowing concerns and things like that, you can always blend this one up.
You could
as well.
purify it easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You could purify it,
Absolutely.
freeze it, like I said, so versatile, so many vegetables, and how excited are you to eat this? I'm pretty excited.
Woohoo! Yeah. I skinny tinny, the carnation skinny tinny. If you cream your soups and add that skinny tinny, which is the low fat one, to it, it makes those
it nice
soups
and creamy
delicious.
and lovely.
Delicious.
Well, I think we're going to go off and eat this now.
Woo, really? Woo!